CityCast Pittsburgh is supported by Fulton Commons. If you're looking for a gorgeous co-working space with lots of light and some truly wonderfully funky decor, check out Fulton Commons on the north side. The historic but very well renovated old school building is deep in the neighborhood by a park, tucked away but still super close to anywhere you want to be. They've got offices and common spaces. It's perfect for organizations or individuals, and they even have a shared food production kitchen on site. So there's lots of food-related events for their members. If this sounds like your dream co-working space, visit fultonpgh.org to request a tour. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, we've got trash emergencies, more chaos over U.S. Steel and student visas, plus maybe Sidney Crosby should just be the city's new quarterback. CityCast Mallory Falk and Sophia Lowe are with me talking about some of the biggest stories of the week. It's Friday, April 11th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Mallory, Sophia, good morning.
Good morning.
I like the harmony there. Litter. We are talking about litter today.
Yes. Earlier this week, City Councilor Bob Charland made a huge stink about the city's trash problem.
Huge stink.
Yeah, I know. I made that intentionally. And he says that Pittsburgh's litter problem is so bad that we need help from the state, from Governor Shapiro. So Charland submitted a will of council on Tuesday. That is basically just a very fancy word for this is what council thinks about a specific issue. And he went so far as to say he wanted to declare a state of emergency about the trash problem.
I mean, the trash is legitimately pretty bad in a lot of places all over the city right now.
I gotta say, I feel like there's been a lot of grandstanding from city council recently. To me, this feels maybe like another example of that.
Yeah, I think it's a little silly to go so far to say state of emergency. I'm not going to say that there isn't a trash problem, but it's also in a lot of like abandoned lots. It's not like getting in the way, I think, of like most people's day-to-day function.
I also just think there's like a lot of other emergencies right now that are important to focus on.
Fair, but the one thing I will say, state of emergency aside, I do think it might be reasonable. I can't believe I'm defending this. I do think it might be reasonable to ask the governor to step in because some of these spaces that are covered in trash right now are owned by the state. Like, for example, those medians, I was driving by the other day and I was kind of appalled by it, like by the trail that goes down to the point. But this is the median, like, say, between 376 and like 2nd Avenue, for example. That whole stretch, it's covered in trash. That's not city property. By and large, anything that's owned by PennDOT has to be dealt with by the state of Pennsylvania.
I had not thought about that, but okay, that makes this a little more reasonable.
That's a good point.
I mean, again, a state of emergency is a little bit different, but I do think it's reasonable to tap the state and be like, hey, come fix our stuff.
Yeah, well, city council's basically saying the same thing. Some councilors took issue with the state of emergency wording, like Kari Mosley pointed to bigger current issues like PRT's funding crisis.
Yeah, like we might not have much of a bus system anymore.
Right, and like an article from the Trib pointed out, we've used state of emergency for things like the Fern Hollow Bridge falling down, COVID. So like feels a little bigger than trash.
Except that the one thing with state of emergency is it just allows a lot more flexibility and timing and how you deal with a thing. I don't know the particulars of it, but I think that's part of why it's sometimes helpful to declare one, even when like it feels like a big thing to say, but it just means that we don't have to follow every rule to get the job done. Like you can move faster and more nimbly sometimes.
We can go rogue with picking up trash.
Maybe we don't want that, but like I understand wanting to have that flexibility.
And I guess there's not a limit, like Pittsburgh only gets to declare 2 states of emergency per year or something.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, council is going to ask the governor for help, so we'll see what Shapiro has to say about all of this. But right now, they're not going with the ask, specifically with the state of emergency.
Fair.
But Gainey also held a press conference about trash, and he said we can handle this on our own within the city. Like the Department of Public Works was also at his press conference. And then Gainey talked a little bit about this new community neighborhood stewardship program. So this is a reentry program, and people who were formerly incarcerated get hired to, clean up neighborhoods, pick up litter. They are starting in Homewood this week. So that's coming along. But I guess, like you said, Megan, that's in neighborhoods. I don't know if they have the ability to go where it's like PennDOT's responsibility.
I mean, we can probably clean up anywhere we want to clean up, but that doesn't mean it's our job. And I think the secondary thing, we did that episode about potholes earlier this week. When I was in the room with DPW, they were talking about how behind they were picking up trash this year, in part because we got so much snow. They weren't able to keep up with it in the same way that they normally would when people dump stuff out of their car.
I'm so finely attuned to how much trash accumulates under the snow because every time it melts and I walk my dog, she has a field day and I'm repulsed because there's just layers on layers of trash piled up there.
But to me, them saying yeah, we already know this is an issue and we're seeing it everywhere, that means the city, in fact, cannot deal with it on their own, and they could probably use some help. I don't take Gainey at his word there. And I think it's disingenuous when we're having conversations with DPW saying yeah, we actually have a problem with this, for the city to be nah, we got it. Actually, dude, we don't. We don't got it. And that's the thing.
Well, it also sounds like when the city can do something, they are actively trying to figure out the trash problem, because Trib Live reported that the DPW director said that last year the city looked into 7,500 trash complaints. That's a lot of them. And then DPW actually did something about 5,000 of those complaints. So that's a pretty high rate of success. I feel especially sometimes we don't hear back from the city government right away when it comes to something like potholes. Or I know, Mallory, you weren't hearing from the city about a tree. So at least people are getting their trash picked up.
I mean, I think me wanting to have the city plant a tree in front of my house through a free program is less critical to respond to in a timely fashion than trash pickup and potholes.
That is fair. Yeah.
By the way, if you want to do a neighborhood trash pickup, if you just feel compelled to go help on your own, you are supposed to get a permit from the city for that. Another thing I learned from DPW this week.
And based on reporting, people have said that neighborhood cleanups cannot address this problem just because we have so much trash. But I still think it's worth it to at least try to clean up trash in your neighborhood. At the very least, it's also very nice to meet your neighbors who are also trying to make your neighborhood a prettier space.
Yeah, what better way to bond than, picking up used beer bottles together?
Just don't drink up any leftover beer.
Okay, stop.
Well, moving on to our trivia question of the week. We're going to go out of the streets full of trash and into the waterways. If you tuned into the show last week, you heard us talk about the Steel City Duck Derby. That is coming up on April 26th in Allegheny Commons Park. 10,000 rubber ducks are going to race across Lake Elizabeth for charity.
Woo!
So in honor of that sacred event, I have a rubber duck related trivia question for you. When I say I do, this of course is written as always by our trivia master, Kevin Gavin. Back in 2013, a Dutch artist created the world's largest rubber duck, and it made its debut in North America right here in Pittsburgh. It floated up the Ohio River as part of the International Festival of Firsts.
First big duck?
I don't know. I was not at this festival, but
I was.
All right, then Megan, you might have a leg up in knowing the answer to this question, which is, how tall was the duck? And I am not going to give you multiple choice options here, but you can either guess how many feet tall it was or how many stories high.
I was not at this festival. Obviously, I wasn't in Pittsburgh, but I saw this duck too, but in Hong Kong. So I also think I know the answer.
Ooh, is that before or after it made its way to Pittsburgh?
I'm not sure. It was
Why
also
would you know
around
that?
the same
You had no
time.
Pittsburgh connection when you were in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I think it made the rounds for 2 or 3 years. But fun fact, there were multiple ducks floating around the world. So there was not just one duck.
Oh. So maybe I don't know the answer. I was going to guess I think it was around 50 feet, maybe give or take. I'll just stick with 50 because that's a nice round number.
I for sure know the answer. So I'll reveal it when we get back. Today's episode is supported by the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. If you're looking for a great night out, their Disrupt concerts are really fun. They're short, they're relaxed, there is no dress code, and you'll have a host on stage guiding you through the piece and bringing context to both the music and the person or people who composed it. You can even ask questions. There's one more Disrupt concert coming up this spring, Love Struck on April 10th, featuring a love story. Ravel's Daphne C. Chloe. You can expect shimmery romantic dreamscapes, ethereal progressions, and hypnotic harmonies that depict characters like nymphs and other mythical archetypes. The show is only 60 minutes long, and it's more than a concert. It's really an experience. Get there a little early, grab a cocktail, make a craft, and soak in the beautiful space alongside your neighbors. Tickets for Love Struck start at just $25. Get yours at pittsburghsymphony.org/disrupt.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
Okay, Megan, you sounded very confident. So how tall was the world's largest duck, rubber duck?
We didn't have the world's tallest rubber duck. We had a 40-foot tall duck, but the largest one, which is part of the same project, I believe the guy's name was like Florentine Hoffman or something. It was 100 feet. There was a 100-foot tall duck somewhere else.
Whoa.
I know it was in France, but it went different places too, just like ours.
Oh, well, I didn't realize there were multiple ducks, so I'm going to still choose to believe my 50 feet answer is right. It might not be.
I think there was a 50 feet one, like
Okay.
54 or something like that.
Everyone's right. Yay.
But in Pittsburgh, Sophia was 40 feet. So you only get like partial credit.
Or 4 stories. Yeah, however you want to count it.
4/5 credit.
Okay, well, back to the news. I kind of feel like we need to start a whole like U.S. steel sale corner on this show because this story is constantly evolving, and even just this week, there are a lot of updates. So President Trump started out the week sounding like the U.S. Steel Nippon deal, like there might still be some hope that it could happen. And then by Wednesday, he had seemingly totally reversed course.
Yeah, in case you haven't been following this, on Monday, Trump ordered a new review from a national security panel. That's the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. They had looked at this deal previously last year. Just a reminder, Nippon had $15 billion on the table to try to buy U.S. Steel here in the U.S. They were going to keep the facilities, they said. They wanted to keep the employees. They'd also upped their physical investment. So that's like for facilities and plants, some of which are obviously here in the Mon Valley. They were going to invest $2.7 billion. They added even more money. $7 billion was going to come, at least in part, to the Mon Valley to fix and clean up some of this stuff and bring up the environmental standards, for example. Like, let's not forget, some of these facilities are like responsible for some of the worst pollution in the entire United States. Now, it seems like maybe that's not on the table anymore. So on Monday, when Trump orders this review, U.S. Steel shares jack up. Like they went up 16%. Apparently, it was a 52-week high, a one-year high for them. That's according to the Associated Press. But then on Wednesday, we get new news.
Yeah. So just a couple days later, Trump said that he does not want U.S. Steel to go to a Japanese company. He said, quote, "We love Japan, but U.S. Steel is a very special company. We don't want it to go to Japan or any other place." And so the U.S. Steel stock, which had just gone up, it dropped more than 11% at the time we're recording this.
So super high and then back down to, it sounds like maybe up. I just keep thinking about this quote. I don't even remember where I saw it anymore, but it was a U.S. Steel worker talking about this and talking about like how this whole idea of it being a special company, as President Trump put it, is just kind of bunk. That if the words U.S. weren't in the title, that no one would really care. This would be a normal sale. And the guy was just saying, like, I'm frustrated by this. Like, because we're called U.S. Steel, suddenly that makes it special. And I haven't been able to get that out of my head. I think he's right. I think he's so right.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So I guess U.S. still needs to change its name first. I don't know, become Steely McBeam, and then the sale will go through fine.
Well, in the meantime, it seems like this review is still going to happen. So if you've been following the saga for a while now, listening to us for a while, you know that last year, this national security panel, it reviewed the deal to see if it might pose any national security risks and failed to reach a consensus on that. Biden blocked the deal. But now this committee, it has all new members. They're all Trump appointees. And as far as we can tell, this review is still on. So the panel has 45 days to do a new review and then share a recommendation about the sale, see whether sort of any of the measures Nippon said it would put in place to mitigate security risks, like
security risks we actually never learned about. Like they never told us what the risks were.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll see kind of what happens with that. And who knows, like by the time you hear this podcast episode, Trump might have said something else about U.S. Steel because it seems to change every couple days.
Yeah. And we should say, too, like union leadership is still like vehemently opposed to this. And there are lots of other actors in place. Like another update, last week on this show, we mentioned that there's an activist group working behind the scenes in Cora that has a 1% stake in the company, in U.S. Steel. And they had been trying to oust the board and the CEO to take
Very
U.S.
dramatic.
Steel in a very different direction. But when Trump ordered this new review on Monday, and Cora said it was going to drop the campaign, just like so. It's a lot of whiplash. It's with this whole story for the last year and a half, it's been a lot of whiplash.
Yeah. And, we'll keep an eye on it as always. And just keeping in line with how the Trump administration is impacting Pittsburgh, the Trump admin has revoked student visas for hundreds of international students across the country. And that also includes some of our local universities, Pitt and CMU. So at least 10 current and former students at those two universities have had their visas revoked. And in terms of like former students, there's a program that allows international students to stay in the U.S. for 3 years after they graduate if they have a job. So that's why in reporting you see like former or previous students. So in terms of like the number of students and who they are, what we do know is 2 CMU students and 5 recent CMU grads, 1 Pitt grad student, and 2 recent Pitt grads all have had their visas taken away.
Yeah, and this is just over the past few days that this has been happening, or at least we've been learning about it. From both local and national reporting on these hundreds of visas getting revoked, some of the students being targeted had some kind of legal infraction, including things as minor as traffic violations, like driving over the speed limit, which normally is not a reason you would get your visa pulled.
No, not at all.
Like lots of lawyers are just calling this unprecedented. Some students, it appears, were involved in pro-Palestine protests. We've seen how student activists have been targeted by the Trump administration. And then for some, there's just like no clear reason or justification given. So there's a lot of confusion. I've read reporting from some lawyers saying that like students who've come into contact with law enforcement, some of them were never even arrested or convicted. It seems like just that like interaction with law enforcement was enough to get their visas pulled.
All of this is very messed up.
Yeah, and we don't know for certain for students locally here, like what the reasons were that their visas were revoked, except for one student who spoke to the media. His name is Jason Ma. He came to the U.S. from China on a student visa in 2016 to attend high school, and he's now an electrical computer engineering student at CMU. So he got a DUI in 2023, and he and his lawyer suspect that's why he was targeted. But he completed a program with the county that like allowed the charges to be dismissed, got it expunged from his record. Again, this is not the kind of thing that traditionally you would lose your visa over. And they don't actually even know if that's why it's being revoked because according to the student and his lawyer, they haven't gotten any official word from the Department of Homeland Security about why his visa was terminated. CMU is the one that let him know that this had happened. It sounds like universities are just kind of checking their databases of international students and realizing some of them have had their visas revoked. So it's all just truly wild. He says CMU is working with him to try to figure out if he can finish out this semester and then get a degree remotely. He's supposed to graduate in December. But it's all very confusing, and it seems like it's throwing our local universities and schools like nationwide into like turmoil.
Yeah, and it's just frustrating too. Like, look at like these are like high achieving people that have employment in the Pittsburgh region, are contributing to the economy. Like, no matter how you feel about immigration, like these are the people that everyone points to and says we need more of in Pittsburgh, and instead we're trying to send them away.
Yeah. And like, I always want to be so careful with that narrative because to not imply that some people are more deserving of getting deported than others. But I see your point, Megan, that these are,
and I don't mean it that way.
When you hear people talk about come here the right way, get the right legal status, these are people who fall to that category.
Yeah, it's more just like if you want to make the economic argument, which I find many flaws with, these are the people that are often pointed to in that narrative, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah, 100%.
No one is safe. There is no type of immigrant right now that is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and these students now, they're at risk of being detained and deported if they don't leave the U.S. And if you get deported, it makes coming back way harder. It's just going to have this terrible ripple effect.
Also worth noting in all of this, last month, CMU was one out of 6 universities that got a letter from this congressional committee. It is called the U.S. House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party.
It sounds like something out of the 1950s. It's like very McCarthyism to me.
Yeah, it really is, because this letter asked for information about CMU students from China, so this committee could assess the national security risks.
Of students.
Yeah, I mean, the language in this letter is very chilling. It says that universities in the U.S. are, quote, increasingly used as conduits for foreign adversaries to illegally gain access to critical research and advanced technology. So like accusing these students of
spying for their country.
And the questions are terrifying too. Like they're asking for CMU to provide a list of all the universities that Chinese national students previously attended, including their research affiliations, specify the sources of tuition funding for these students, identify the type of research the students are conducting. I mean, it's chilling.
TaxAct knows small business owners can sometimes use a little help with their taxes. That's why TaxAct has Expert Assist, a team of live tax experts ready to answer any questions you may have. Think of them as your own personal sidekick. Not like one of those funny talking animal sidekicks, more like the super smart nerding out on tax code and business casual attire sidekick, but just as helpful and lovable. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
All right, y'all, here's what else you should know about Pittsburgh this week. We're still kind of in a bleak place.
Yeah, so, I just mentioned that some students, it seems like, are having their visas revoked because of pro-Palestinian activism. It's unclear if that's the case for any of the local students here, but there is some news involving pro-Palestinian activism and a university campus in Pittsburgh. So last month, the University of Pittsburgh suspended the campus chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine, or SJP, and now the ACLU is getting involved.
And this is an interim suspension for SJP, so that means for now they can't host events on campus and they can't request funding from the university, but it's not final just yet.
Yeah. And so without getting way too in the weeds here, essentially back in December, SJP held this study-in on campus in the Hillman Library. Pitt said it didn't comply with the school's event policies. And so in February, there was a conduct hearing about it. And the school is saying that during that hearing, SJP, quote, improperly engaged in communications to members of the conduct hearing board. And so that's the reason that Pitt put them on interim suspension. SJP says the following day, they got an email saying they might face more disciplinary action for promoting an off-campus community event. And so this is where the ACLU of Pennsylvania is getting involved. They sent a letter to Pitt's chancellor saying that the university has violated the organization's First Amendment rights by singling them out for discipline, retaliating against them for criticizing the university, and then trying to get them to stop off-campus activities. So it sounds like the ACLU of Pennsylvania is in ongoing conversations with Pitt's legal team. It had sounded like SJP was maybe considering legal action. So we will see what happens with all of this.
What is a study in? Do we know what that is? Because it sounds like something that would be kind of calm and peaceful, not the kind of thing that would then yield disciplinary action.
So like Mallory said, this happened back in December. So I am going in the Instagram history in my memory. But it was so I hope these details are right. I remember seeing the study in being promoted on Instagram accounts like Pitt Apartheid Divest. Maybe it was also on SJP's Instagram account. But it was just people studying in the library. I don't think they were necessarily making any noise or anything.
So they're getting in trouble for being quiet in a shared space.
Well, it sounds like the problem was signage that was up. I remember seeing Palestinian flags, that kind of thing. And I guess maybe they hadn't officially reserved the space. And I assumed students showed up and they probably called it a gathering. I think it's just really minute stuff. It really sounds to me like the university doesn't want to see this kind of activism on their campus.
And I think that's kind of what the ACLU is arguing too, that this group is is being targeted for discipline over things that, maybe another group, it wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. We can move on to some lighter news. Season 1 of The Pitt wrapped up this week. No spoilers here. We're not going to talk about the actual plot because have any of us actually watched it yet?
No, I like to binge my show. So now that the finale is
Same.
out as of yesterday, I think I'll get around to watching it.
I watched 3 episodes last night. I did not go to bed till after midnight. It was a problem.
I'm trying to complete a show at a time. So now that White Lotus has wrapped, I am excited to start The Pitt.
But season 2, good news, has already been greenlit and is apparently in production. They are going to come back to Pittsburgh to shoot. Of course, a lot of the showrunners have connections to Pittsburgh. One of them was a CMU grad. It sounds like they're going to be here in September again, so we can look forward to more beautiful skyline shots and green trees. We've almost got green trees.
Oh,
again.
you're
I'm
so
happy.
right.
Yeah. It actually feels nice to watch the show and see how beautiful the city is in the spring and summertime. It's going to be the same format. I didn't realize this until recently. Again, no spoiler. But the whole season is one day, one 15-hour shift in a medical facility. But the second season is going to be taking place during 4th of July weekend, which makes me shiver because Pittsburgh has had some chaos during the 4th of July. I don't think they'd have to reach too far to create some scenes for a future season if they actually pulled from reality.
I want them to have it set during Picklesburg and people are coming in because they just chug too much pickle juice.
I think marathon weekend would also be good.
Yeah, the marathon. That's a great idea. Anyway, season 2 is supposed to premiere in January of next year, so we all have a lot of time to catch up between now and then.
Yeah, maybe I'll hold off on watching then so I can roll right in from season 1 to season 2.
Sophia, I have bad news. I think you might need to watch this for work soon. Just hint, hint.
Oh, okay. Then I will be taking 2 days, 15 hours to watch TV. That's also fine. But something I'm thinking about is the airport terminal. We are inching closer to completion. It's supposed to be done by the end of the year. But some recent news that the Trib reported is that the new terminal price is almost double what they originally estimated back in 2019. So the price tag is now up to $1.7 billion.
Oh my gosh.
What strikes me immediately about hearing the estimate was from 2019 is that was just an entirely different world before the pandemic caused prices to go up and created supply chain issues. And I have to imagine
huge
that's
inflation now.
Part of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the funny part to me is that if you went to the airport during that period, they had all these signs up that said, new terminal coming in 2022 or 2023 to start. And they just kept putting new stickers over the year. And it was 2024, 2025. It's
going to be 2025, right?
It is. Because we got a preview of it recently, and they've done a ton of work, but there was scaffolding everywhere. But yeah, I think end of the summer, beginning of the fall was the soonest it might be done.
And, Mallory, all of those reasons, I'm sure, factored into this huge price difference. But the CEO of the Allegheny County Airport Authority said that they've also started doing other improvements that aren't part of the new terminal. So I think, if they're doing renovations in other parts of the airport, that's also getting factored into the price now. But there is no taxpayer money going towards the airport. All of the money for everything new is coming from bonds.
Well, we'll move on. If you are a sports fan, you might still be watching clips of the Pat McAfee show that took over PPG Paints Arena this week. It was something like 12,000 plus people went down to watch this guy. He's a former pro football player. He's from the Pittsburgh area, from Plum. But I think most people are aware of him because he hosts this 3-hour show on YouTube and ESPN. If you are not a sports person at all, but you listen to our show, you might know this name because the Sell the Team guys were talking about him last week in our show.
That's how I know the name.
Yes. They were talking about trying to get celebrities and people with big platforms on board with this whole movement of getting the owner of the Pirates, Bob Nutting, to sell the team to someone who will care and invest more money in it. And Pat McAfee was one of the people. They were like, we need him to care about this because he's got this whole big platform and maybe it would give the whole movement more momentum. Anyway, Pat McAfee has this huge event. There was a ton of speculation going into it about whether Aaron Rodgers, remember the quarterback prospect for the Steelers?
Everyone's favorite conspiracy theorist.
Yes. I guess he's been on the Pat McAfee show a whole bunch in recent years. And so people were thinking if Aaron Rodgers is actually coming to the Steelers, they're going to make the announcement on Wednesday because the show's happening in Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers did not come. So as we're recording this, we still do not have a quarterback here in Pittsburgh.
I consider that good news. I do not want a Sandy Hook denier on our team.
Oof, that's dark, but fair.
But what did happen during the show, again, it was very long. There were a lot of celebrities. They had concerts Wiz Khalifa did one. Snoop Dogg came in. There were some country artists. Jelly Roll played Renegade. It was weird.
Who planned this? This is too much to put in one event.
Honestly, I think the WWE planned it. I'm not kidding. I think that was a large part of how it was put together.
That tracks. Okay, now I'm seeing the vision, I guess.
There was a lot of smoke, for example, a lot of smoke machines. But what happened during part of this, they brought out literally a WWE announcer before they did sumo wrestling. I'm not kidding. And people started chanting, "Sell the team." The guy mentioned that he went to a Pirates game and the whole crowd started screaming, "Sell the team." Later on, Paul Skeens, the Pirates pitcher, the phenom, was on stage and they did it again.
This is really getting traction.
I know. I'm kind of impressed. By the way, during this whole circus that was the Pat McAfee show, they played this game on stage where they had Sidney Crosby, Ben Roethlisberger, and Paul Skeens all try to throw a football through this enormous hoop on the back of the stage. Ben did it no problem. Sidney Crosby did it, which is incredible. Letang and Malkin were both on stage too, and we're like, yeah, of course, he does everything great.
I was going to say, did you have any doubt that he would be able to achieve that?
I mean, it just kind of hits the lip and then tucks over into the net. It was kind of great. Paul Skeens, however, I mean, he's a pitcher. It's a different ball. Didn't hit it at all. Not even close. He got 2 tries. Couldn't do it.
It's just been a rough week for the Pirates. Rough couple of weeks.
Yeah. He did. Skeens, by the way, said during the game, I didn't acknowledge the sell the team stuff exactly, but said basically Pittsburgh deserves to win, which read into that what you want to. By the way, in case you missed it last week, the Sell the Team guys who were on the show with us, they were being kind of coy about what they were going to do for the home opener weekend. But they flew a whole plane with a big banner around the park, around PNC Park for a while beforehand. I was watching the national broadcast of our home opener against the Yankees, and the announcers were talking about it. People booing and wearing their T-shirts. I'm so impressed with the amount of attention that they have gotten so quickly.
I mean, is Bob Nutting at some point going to have to address this? It's getting huge.
Maybe. I don't know. But last up for sports news, did y'all see the stuff about the bricks at PNC Park?
No. When you say bricks, I think Lego.
Fair enough. So there's bricks outside the actual stadium, on the ground that have people's names and inscriptions.
Okay, now I know what you're talking about. I've seen them. Yeah.
Yeah. There were 10,000 of them sold starting as far back as 1999 when they built the arena. There were 2 different sizes. You could either buy a small one for $75 or a large one for $150. And I guess a bunch of them around the home plate entrance went missing during the off season. Like they took them out.
They were pried out.
They were pried out because it was like they were resurfacing, and they like put more like just one layer of concrete over there. But fans weren't told about it, and like some of these are like deceased relatives and like things like that. Like they meant a lot to a lot of people. KDKA found them at a recycling center in Reserve Township.
Whoa.
I know. Like, name's still there. The team had not acknowledged it. It's like the Pirates are inventing ways to piss off their fan base or just convince them that we don't care about you at all.
That would be really upsetting to me personally if I had bought one of those.
I know some of the stories were like really gut-wrenching. Like people who they were children when their grandpap bought them a brick and they touch it with their toe before they go to a game.
That's
every
really
time.
Sweet.
I mean, I know. It's like really, really sad. And the fans were like, if you just let us know, we would have come and got it. Like you didn't have to throw it away. It didn't have to be like this. You still could. And I guess the Pirates put out something as we're recording this just a few hours ago saying that the bricks will come back. We're not done with them. We're not done with them. They're going to come back in like a vertical display of some kind. But like the timing of it suggests to me that might not have been the case had KDK not like found this and blown up their spot about it.
This is why journalism matters.
I'm telling you.
And, we actually just found out that our own Hey Pittsburgh newsletter editor, Francesca DeBecco, has a connection to one of these bricks. So it's personal.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally. And I will end on some fun food news. Paige's Dairy Mart had a big announcement. They bought a truck and are currently renovating it. Their Instagram post says they want to get this ice cream truck up and running for this season. So maybe sometime this summer, you'll see Paige's driving around and you can eat, I don't know, maybe not under a drippy bridge.
But the drippy bridge is such an essential part of the experience.
I completely agree. Also, how are they going to have enough room in one truck for the thousands of ingredient options that you have at Paige's?
I don't know. Maybe they'll do like a best of.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. Our music is by Benji, All the Kimonos, DM, and Zoe Casotis, with additional music from epidemicsound.com. Mallory Falk is our executive producer. Sophia Lowe and Elizabeth Kama produce the show. Francesca DeBecco writes our newsletter. Kevin Gavin is our trivia master. And I am your host, Megan Harris. We will be back on Monday with more news from around the city. Have a great weekend, y'all. Sophia, I feel like they should have you curate the Paige's menu. It's like, these are Sophia's top 10 things that I would like to see on the food truck.
Ooh. Carrot cake Arctic swirl. I think they're bringing that back.